Hi everyone, it's Brandon again coming to you with just another short safety reminder today. This one is something that certainly applies to every single person, but it might apply to you in a different way than somebody else in the company. We're going to talk about PPE, personal protective equipment. This is something you absolutely run into every single day on an hourly basis, it seems. PPE can mean an infinite number of things depending on the person, depending on the job, depending on the tasks within that job. For some people, a respirator is a standard daily use PPE. For others, it's fire-resistant clothing, hard hats, hearing protection. For others still, it might be a Kevlar vest if you're an officer or something. The Kevlar vest, the bulletproof vest the cop wears, is technically a piece of PPE. If you work in a hospital as a nurse, you got all different types of PPE. It has an infinite number of things that it could potentially be. To put it in some perspective, how PPE changes, certainly even for us here in our industry, we do a lot of the same things day in, day out, but risks change, our tasks change. To put that in some perspective of how situations can change and PPE can change with that situation, go just a little bit back in time in February 2020, the world was all as well essentially, and having a face mask, just one of those cloth face mask, nobody would have even thought that would be standard issue PPE. All you got to do is go forward 60 days to March or April of 2020, and nearly everybody in the country had PPE, and it was required PPE. I mean, you don't think of wearing a face mask because of COVID as PPE, but that is 100% exactly what it is. It was just in such widespread use, you didn't even think to classify it as PPE. That came about because a new hazard presented itself to pretty much everyone, okay? So PPE can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. The most common types of PPE that we're going to deal with on a daily basis is our high-vis clothing, safety vests. We also have the t-shirts, things like that. This is just your standard one. Orange works as well. There's that neon green. This one is neon yellow with the reflective ones. Our hard hats, hearing protection, and eye protection. Again, there's much more than that, but those are the bread and butter ones that we certainly use every single day. When do you use it? Well, a couple different things to take into account there. Obviously, when the job site requires it, you use it. Some job sites, even though there's nothing at all overhead yet, we're the first ones on the site. We're going to build a big building there eventually, but right now it's just an open field. Well, Hausman Construction or Sampson Construction or Kiewit requires, they have a big sign that says what they require, and they require everybody with hard hats there. Well, if it's required by the general contractor, then that's just the way it is. So that one's easy to know. The other ones are less easy to know. If there is no signage directing you to do what to do. When it's reasonable that a hazard exists is when you need the PPE, okay? Does a driver in a truck need a high-vis vest on? No. Not when they're driving. Let's say that truck breaks down by the side of the road and they have to get out to take a look at some things. Then they absolutely need a high visibility vest on or high-vis clothing of some type. The situation just changed, okay? For hard hats, when there's a reasonable expectation of an overhead hazard, okay? As always, ask questions on that. So for the safety vests and high-vis clothing, when there is a reasonable expectation of being around moving vehicles or equipment or anything like that, where you just need to be seen, that's when you use it. For hard hats, it's when there's a reasonable expectation of overhead hazards. And that can mean a couple different things in and of itself. Obviously, if we're doing a demolition or something like that, where there's things hanging from ceilings or something like that, you'll need one. Another thing to take into account, if you are working at this level and there's work going on above you by some subcontractor working on the side of the building, there's a potential that they could drop a tool or drop a piece of material or something like that. That's an overhead hazard, and in that situation you would also need a hard hat on, okay? Reasonable expectation of high volume sounds for the hearing protection. I think the actual written rule is 85 decibels. You're not going to be carrying a decibel meter with you, so you won't know the exact decibels. Kind of the rule of thumb is if you're standing next 6 feet or closer to somebody and you have to shout to be heard, you need hearing protection. That's where our earplugs come into play at. And these are really simple, although there is one trick to putting them in. You don't just shove them in your ear, you roll them up, and then with your other hand, come over your head like that and pull your ear tight. This straightens out the eardrum so that they can actually go in, and then you just put it in, and that's it. Okay, so there is, with those, there's a right way and a wrong way to put those in. Okay, if there's a reasonable expectation of flying debris, particulate, or anything like that that presents an eye hazard, if you're using a grinder, a hand tool, or anything else that can fling up debris, if there's a lot of dust blowing through the air, that's when the safety glasses come into effect. Okay, so there is no hard and fast rule of here's when you need PPE, here's when you need a hard hat, here's where you need safety glasses, and here's when you don't. Okay, situations change. Not all situations are created equal. So it's when there's a reasonable expectation of a hazard that PPE would protect you from is when you need it. As always, if you have a question on that, ask the question. We'll be more than happy to help you out. A couple things on the PPE. Inspect it before you use it. Make sure it fits properly. A couple hard hats here. Make sure they're all adjustable. Every hard hat is adjustable since the beginning of time. Make sure there are no cracks or anything like that in it. Make sure it's functional. This hard hat, dirty, is still functional. There's no cracks in this one. It's dirty. It's been used, obviously. Still functional. The safety glasses, make sure they're not so dirty or so scratched up that you can't see clearly through them, because that creates a whole another set of issues. So just inspect those. With earplugs, change them out. They get really dirty really fast, and we have literally thousands of these things around. So change them out whenever they get too dirty. Safety vest, if you had the same safety vest for 2-3 years, it's probably going to get a little grimy, probably going to get a little dirty, where you won't even be able to see the true color of it. We can change those out for you too. So make sure you inspect them. We have all of this stuff, all of it here. We can get it out to you in a moment's notice. There's never any excuse not to have the proper PPE. As for when to use it and when not to, if you are unsure, use it. Really, really unsure, call it in and we'll make the determination for you. Again, if you have a question, certainly ask a question. Thank you.